Trigger warning. This story contains psychological horror, disappearance, intense supernatural elements, claustrophobic situations. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Nightmare Maker, where your darkest fears come to life. Before we step into the unseen room, make sure you're watching this with the lights off, if you dare. Turn on notifications to never miss a new nightmare. I should have listened to my dad when he told me to never visit the house at the edge of town. But, like any rebellious teen, I chalked his warnings up to old wives' tales. Every small town has its urban legends, and the one about the house on Venice Street was no different. Or so I thought. The house had been abandoned for decades, left to rot under layers of ivy, its windows long since boarded up. It was the kind of place kids dared each other to go near, especially around Halloween. The unseen room, they called it, after the strange, unsolved disappearance of a man who had supposedly gone inside and never come out. I never believed in ghost stories, not until I stepped foot inside that cursed place. It was a crisp October night when I finally caved. My friends, Sarah and Mike, had been egging me on for weeks, but something about tonight felt different. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up, though I brushed it off as excitement. "Come on, Jake," Sarah whispered as we reached the sagging gate. "You're not chickening out now, are you?" I swallowed hard, glancing at the house. Its dark silhouette loomed over us like a hungry predator, ready to swallow anyone foolish enough to get close. I hadn't wanted to come, but the idea of being the coward in front of my friends gnawed at me. I forced a laugh, though it sounded weak even to my ears. "No way! Let's do this!" The front door creaked open with a deafening groan, the kind of sound that feels alive, like the house itself was waking up after a long sleep. Dust motes swirled in the dim light of our flashlights as we stepped inside. The place smelled old, like mildew and something else, something faintly metallic. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the challenge ahead. The dare was simple. Find the unseen room. It was rumored to be somewhere deep within the house, hidden from view, a room that didn't exist on any blueprint or floor plan. Those who found it, if you believed the local legend, never came back. Most people thought it was just a story, a way to scare kids. But the longer I stayed inside that house, the more I began to believe there was something more to it. We started exploring, our flashlights flickering as we moved from room to room. The house was eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of old wood under our feet. Each room was filled with decaying furniture, cobwebs stretching from corner to corner, and the strange sensation that we were being watched. I caught Sarah glancing over her shoulder more than once, her confidence waning as we delved deeper. The deeper we went, the stranger the house became. What started as a typical abandoned building quickly morphed into something else. Hallways twisted in impossible angles. Rooms that should have been connected were cut off by walls that weren't supposed to be there, and the layout made no sense. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was shifting. "I swear we've been down this hall before," Mike said, his voice wavering as we turned another corner that led to nowhere. "I'm starting to think this place is messing with us," I muttered, wiping the sweat from my brow. The air was thick and stale, making it hard to breathe. "It's just a house," Sarah insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "Let's just find this room and get the hell out of here." But the more we searched, the more I realized that this wasn't just some abandoned house. The walls felt wrong, They were too close, pressing in on us like the house was alive, breathing. I tried to shake off the thought, but it kept creeping back. And then, we found it. Or rather, it found us. At the end of a narrow hallway, almost hidden in the shadows, was a door that hadn't been there before. I swear, it hadn't. We'd walked that same hallway just moments before, and I would have noticed a door like that. It was old, made of dark, warped wood, with an iron handle that looked ancient. A deep sense of dread settled in my gut, but before I could voice my concerns, Mike reached for the handle. "Don't!" I said, grabbing his arm. "Something's wrong. This isn't normal." Mike shook me off. "You're just scared." And maybe I was, but everything in my body was screaming at me to run, to leave that house and never look back. Yet I stood there, frozen, as Mike turned the handle and the door swung open with a low moan. Behind it was nothing. Just darkness, a deep, endless black that seemed to swallow the light from our flashlights. It was as if the room wasn't there at all, like it was a void, an empty space in reality itself. "What the hell is that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Mike, ever the brave one, took a step forward. "Let's find out." "No," I said, my heart pounding. "We need to leave. Now." But it was too late. The moment Mike crossed the threshold, everything changed. The air grew colder, the walls around us seemed to warp and twist, and the darkness inside the room shifted. It was no longer just empty. It was alive. And it wanted us. Mike screamed, a sound I'll never forget, as something yanked him into the room. I rushed forward, grabbing his arm, but whatever was inside was stronger, much stronger. It pulled him in, dragging him into the blackness. His screams grew distant, muffled, as if he was being swallowed whole. Sarah and I watched, helpless, as Mike disappeared into the dark, his body vanishing into the unseen room. For a moment, there was silence, just the heavy, oppressive quiet that filled the house. Then, the door slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. And Mike was gone. I stood there, frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Sarah was shaking, tears streaming down her face. We needed to leave, but something in me, some morbid curiosity, compelled me to reach for the door again. Maybe I could save him. Maybe there was still time. But when I opened it, there was no room behind it, no darkness, just a blank wall where the door had been. The room was gone. I slammed the door shut and stumbled back, my heart racing. Sarah was sobbing uncontrollably, her voice barely a whisper as she repeated over and over, "He's gone. He's gone." I grabbed her arm and pulled her down the hallway. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The house felt alive around us, the walls seeming to close in, the floorboards creaking as if something beneath us was stirring. We ran, tripping over debris, stumbling through the twisting corridors that seemed to change every time we turned a corner. The house was playing with us, leading us in circles, trapping us in its endless maze. I could feel it now, the presence, the malevolent force that lurked behind the walls, watching, waiting. It didn't want us to leave, but somehow, by some miracle, we found the front door. I don't remember how we got there, only that one moment we were lost, and the next, we were standing before it. I didn't question it. I just grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her outside, slamming the door behind us. The cool night air hit me like a punch to the gut, and I doubled over, gasping for breath. Sarah was still crying, her hands covering her face as she collapsed onto the ground. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't, because I knew it wouldn't be. Mike was gone, and we had barely escaped with our lives. We didn't speak as we made our way back to town. What could we say? There was no explaining what had happened. No way to make sense of the madness we had just witnessed. All I knew was that the house wasn't just some haunted place. It was something else. Something far worse. For days, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the door, the darkness inside it, and Mike's terrified face as he was pulled into the void. The police didn't believe us when we told them what had happened. They searched the house, of course, but found nothing out of the ordinary. No secret rooms, no hidden doors. Just an old, abandoned house. Mike was declared missing, presumed dead. And that was the end of it. Or so I thought. It's been 6 months since that night. Sarah moved away not long after, unable to cope with the trauma. I stayed, mostly out of guilt. I felt like I owed it to Mike to find out what had really happened, to figure out what that room was, and why it had taken him. But the house hasn't let me go. I dream about it every night. In my dreams, I'm back inside, walking the endless halls, searching for the unseen room. Sometimes I find it. Sometimes it finds me. And every time I hear Mike's voice, calling out from the darkness, begging for help. Last night I went back. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I could end it, once and for all. Maybe I just needed to see if it was real. But when I got there, the house was different. It was waiting for me. The door was wide open, the dark hallway beyond beckoning. I don't know what I expected to find, but as I stepped inside, I realized I wasn't alone. The walls were whispering, voices murmuring just out of earshot, calling me deeper into the house. I followed them, my feet moving of their own accord, leading me back to that cursed door. It was there, at the end of the hall, just like before. But this time I wasn't afraid. I reached for the handle, and as I opened the door, I saw him. Mike. He was standing in the darkness, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Jake," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Help me." I took a step forward, but something stopped me. A shadow, darker than the rest, moved in the corner of my vision. I turned to look, and in that moment, I knew the truth. Mike wasn't alone. Something was in there with him. Something that had been waiting, watching, all this time. And now, it wanted me too. I slammed the door shut and ran, my heart pounding in my chest. The walls closed in around me, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. I stumbled through the house, my flashlight flickering, the shadows twisting and warping as I fled. But no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't escape. Because the house wasn't just a place, it was a living, breathing thing. And it had marked me. I can feel it now, even as I sit here, writing this. The house is inside me, its presence growing stronger with each passing day. I hear the whispers all the time now, even when I'm awake. They call to me, telling me to come back, to finish what I started. I know I can't escape it. Not really. The house has claimed me, just like it claimed Mike. And soon, it will come for you too. Because once you've seen the unseen room, there's no turning back. Don't let this be the last nightmare you experience. Join our community of horror enthusiasts. by hitting subscribe and that notification bell. We summon new terrors every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Have you encountered something supernatural? Your real-life nightmare could be our next video. Submit your stories to nightmaremaker20@gmail.com with the subject line, My Nightmare. Selected stories will be featured with full credit. Share your thoughts. What do you think happened to Mike? Have you ever explored an abandoned house? What would you do if you found the unseen room? Don't forget to leave a like if this story kept you up at night.